Yo, SorceryCon 2026 is just around the corner and it's shaping up to be the largest sorcery event post Gothic to date. Events of this magnitude tend to solidify the meta very quickly, but thanks to Ira's Sorcery League and Bruce and CJ Sorcerer Summit, we have a relatively good amount of data to make some assumptions. For those who don't know me, I am Frankenstein on Discord, Curiosa, and the Sorcery Plate Network. I have been playing Sorcery since beta release, have made multiple top cuts at Sorcery tournaments, spend way too much time brewing decks, and of course, love talking about Sorcery. Although I will not be in attendance at SorceryCon this year, I wanted to share my thoughts and provide this video as a resource for players who will be joining the SorceryCon constructed event. I want to look at what decks players should expect to face and what strategies are on the fringe but a little dangerous. The data I will be using is a match data available from Sorcery League Season 10 and Sorcerer Summit up to February 15th. I would like to preface that my meta snapshots may mention win rates, but my primary focus will be play rates. Certain win rates are greatly influenced by very skilled players and avatar one tricks, while others are influenced by the number of games. If two of the same popular avatars play against each other, for example, this is considered one win and one loss for the avatar in question. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at the most popular decks so far since Gothic's release. You have an oldie but a goodie in Pathfinder and potentially the new Druid? Question mark. In Necromancer, a little over 1,900 matches have been recorded across these two online leagues, and Pathfinder made about 700 appearances, and Necromancer made over 500. Not lagging too far behind, you have avatars such as Impostor at nearly 300 games, and have Avatar of Air, Savior, and Sorcerer in the low 200s. Let's take a look at some of the winning lists from the past and potential contenders with the avatars I just mentioned. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take a look at the first list. Let's look at Pathfinder. So for Pathfinder, what Gothic basically gave Pathfinder now is the ability to go into monocolored decks of basically any kind now without having to play many of those bad sides. So, for example, back in the day during beta, if you wanted to be mono fire Pathfinder, sure, you potentially could, but you'd have to play a lot of really bad sites like Mirage. I'm sorry for all those Mirage gamers, but now you have basically 30 solid sites that you can play with a Pathfinder. Now, I'm looking at Ghost's Pathfinder lists. He achieved the seventh place at SCG-Con Atlanta. And right away, I can see that this list does not have any of these Hamlets Ablaze, Castles Ablaze, Salt the Earth type of auras that essentially make a Pathfinder more of a mana destruction type of deck. So I would, this is a very solid list, of course, but I will just kind of warn that those decks, land destruction decks, do exist. And yeah, I mean, Pathfinder's a really tough list to face against. They have sites they're playing every turn. They have big spells. They're basically always going to reach their 6, 7, 8 manas, right? So I just probably recommend that if you have an earthquake or a poison nova, any kind of high value removal, you probably want to hold it as much as you can around turn 6, 7, because 6 or 7, simply just to kind of have something in the chamber when it comes to those high value minions that are willing to take over the game if you have nothing to stop them. Go on to deck number 2 here. We're looking at Necromancer. So we have Necromancer's very popular deck that's surfaced with the introduction of the Necromancer. So this is Mitchell's list from SCG-Con Atlanta, went 6-0. The Necromancer, so right off the bat, right, the avatar itself, you pay 1, you make a skeleton token. This avatar's ability can win the game on its own. I've played avatars, maybe not in water, but a Necromancer that, and in Earth, for example, they'll start on turn 1. They'll do a Boulevard of Bones or something, right? And they'll make their token on turn 1. On turn 2, they play a site. They make another token. They pay 1 and make another token. And by turn 3, right, they'll have like 3 or 4 bodies on the board. And if they're on the play, especially, and on your turn 2, you don't even have a turn 2 play. Well, yeah, it gets out of hand pretty quickly. So for Necromancer, I definitely recommend you keep some very early plays in hand in your opening, and yeah, just nothing much more to say outside of, you have the Koi Nixies, the Thin Ice combination. You have the constant threats you can see in this list. For example, lots of one ofs that kind of just, ruler of tool. As soon as it comes down the board, your next turn is basically removing the ruler and then hoping that your opponent doesn't play something else. And more than likely they will, between the Archangel, Lacuna, Lilith on turn 5. Turn 6, they have Lord of Lies. They have, you get what I mean. Very tough matchup, but as long as you have some early plays in the beginning and stick to your own kind of, your deck's strategy, then maybe you'll get there. Maybe you'll get there. This is a very tough matchup for sure. And moving on, we have the Impostor. So a little self plug on this one. This is a list that I created for Impostor. As soon as I saw Impostor in Gothic, I was right away right. I love brewing decks, and this guy, man, he has so many different things that he can do that just kind of like the sky's the limit almost with Impostor. So 3 mana, you bash an avatar from your collection to mask yourself, and what do? 10 avatars in the collection. I don't know if this is what every Imposter deck is going to do, but I would definitely recommend doing it because, I mean, these collection cards are always active, right? You don't need a toolbox, you don't need a silver bullet or anything. Your collection is always active with Imposter, and you have 10 cards here that essentially do very unique things that don't really exist in other cards. So, uh, if you're playing against an Imposter list, almost always they're going to go Pathfinder first, right? So in your opening hand, you probably want to make sure you keep at least a damage spell, or kind of just plan around having some sort of aggressive play in the first 3 or 4 turns so that you can kind of dissuade the Imposter player from going Pathfinder. Or if on turn 4, for example, they do put on the mask and then they do the Pathfinder to the side, well, then you have the potential to essentially start punishing them from the start, right? Like if you have a really strong turn 3 play, like a Lugbog Cat or a Autumn Unicorn, or uh, you name it, right? Any strong three mana minion. And so those would basically be my recommendations for any kind of matchup against Imposter. Obviously, if they're running water, then you probably expect, at least in my list, right, Avatar of Water, maybe even a Wave Shaper, just to kind of, supplement the water strategy. If you see that it's air fire, then you have obviously Avatar of Air and Flame Caller shenanigans that you need to look out for. So yeah, Imposter is super versatile in the meta currently, and I feel like if you can damage it out of the Pathfinder, that's kind of like step one, and then you can kind of go from there. Very next list here, we have an Avatar of Air by Asterial, the Avatar of Air main himself. Now, Avatar of Air, it's I would not be surprised if Avatar of Air at SorceryCon made a top 8 appearance. A lot of really good players do gravitate to this avatar, so it's kind of no surprise, right? Like a lot of these players that play Avatar of Air, they're so good that they could probably play any other avatar with great success as well. But they chose to play Avatar of Air because of the high skill expression, and well, it's a bit of a noob stomper if if you ask me. It's you always got to beware of the boulder, right? They always have the boulder, and a lot of beginner players may not see the different lines, and so rolling boulder kind of is able to 2-for-1, 3-for-1 in some instances. If possible, against the Avatar of Air player, you probably want to limit the amount of sites that they can attack, especially early in the game. So you probably want to do like an upside down T, right? You have your first site, you play your site up front, and then maybe think about perhaps the rest of the sites just kind of in your back row to to really make them work for the attack, and then also kind of give your avatar line of sight for any kind of spells if you're running, for example, magic missiles or firebolts, etc. So just a couple of things to consider. And a card that I have been kind of, I don't know if I've slept on it perhaps, but Screamer, very interesting card. I've been having a couple of discussions with folks on Screamer. I don't know how popular Screamer is right now and other air lists, but the potential that this card has is it's pretty high. So the Genesis, tap target adjacent enemy minion and make it take a step away. So you get the first thing right off the bat. You remove a blocker for the turn. Good stuff. Now it's making it take a step away. That makes it very interesting because you have multiple options. If you're Avatar of Air player, you might be able to make them take a step into uh, maybe your bottomless pit, right? Or probably the easiest example would be you push the enemy minion to their back row. And so now all of a sudden, a minion that was ready to attack perhaps next turn or block, now it's in the back row and a lot more useless in the back row in terms of a threat to your life total. So very, very cool card. The list obviously is solid. It's Asterial. Avatar of Air would not surprise me again to get another top 8 finish at SorceryCon. Now we're moving on to a little Savior action. I personally, I tried Savior a couple of times, and I personally didn't like it. It didn't really fit my play style. I don't like feeling like I'm a turn behind, right? Because it seems that if you want the most value out of your Savior, you kind of have to play one turn behind. If you're playing your boss troll, for example, now it's if you pay, you could pay 2 to bring it out, but if you pay 3, it comes in with a ward, which is essentially Order of the White Wing, but more of a bear with no ability. Now, what I didn't try before was this list where you're running all these charge minions, where you're able to not only ward it when it comes in, but also ward it after it's finished attacking. So, for example, if you play your red crab priorities to attack into, I don't know, let's say the boss troll, right? So you shield the red cap priorities for 1 mana, and then you attack the trolls, and then you reward it again. So sure, it's 5 mana, but now you removed their minion off the board, and you have a minion with a ward on the board. So essentially, all these minions are very, very sticky because of the Savior's ability. And yeah, so another thing too to look out for is obviously to have some removal in case they play their Shield Maiden. So nearby allies take 1 less damage. So if you have deserts or you have, I mentioned magic missiles earlier, right? So magic missiles doing 1 damage, each instance 1 damage. Shield Maiden will block all of that and keep wards intact. So make sure that you have something for Shield Maidens, and then obviously Earthquakes and kind of like these non-targeted spells are going to be very important in this matchup. Outside of that, yeah, I have not had a chance to play against too many Saviors, but this deck looks really, really annoying. Really annoying to play against. Also, Gift of the Serpent. These gifts have been really, really good. So just even if it's a small minion that kind of seems unassuming, like this Argero Exorcist, can just go in and just finish off an opponent's minion with lethal. So yeah, good, awesome list here by Ring Slayer, Portland SCG Con first place. And now we're at Sorcerer. Sorcerer back like it never left. Really, it's Sorcerer has been super solid during beta, during Arthurian Legends, and now it's back again with a little Gothic update. Although I'm looking at this list and it does not have too many additions, it does have really solid minions in response to a lot of meta cards, right? Demons, spirits, and auras. Argel Exorcist is a great card. You have Baylor of the Evil Eye that can deal 2 damage, and we recently had a codex update that allowed that kind of let folks know that you could do the 2 damage not only on the surface but also subsurface or in the void at a certain location. So Baylor of the Evil Eye, really awesome. And you still have your top end with the Infernal Legion. So essentially with the Sorcerer, you still have the same game plan of getting to 5 or 6 mana, and then double drawing as you need it. And then you now have cards like Gift of the Serpent and Betrayal, so that you have answers to your opponent's threats while also being able to threaten right their life total. So awesome sorcerer list. Cool. So as a baseline, these are the decks that you are more than likely to see in half of your matches or more, especially if you are at the top tables. Now, the strategies that are on the fringe but are very dangerous in my opinion are Persecutor and Enchantress, two decks that are looking to be aggressive in their own unique ways. Persecutor with a focus on damage with minions and positional burn spells, while Enchantress is looking to get immediate value from auras, evade damage, or minion removal, and then animate them on the following turn to attack. So let's go ahead and take a look at a Persecutor list that I really like. So here we have Terminate with Extreme Prejudice, STG-Con, Portland by Grish. And so you have Persecutor, right? Once on your turn, may step towards the closest evil or branded enemy, so your cards treat them as evil this turn. So essentially, what Persecutor has going for it is that one, is a very mobile avatar, and then two, you could play a lot of the most premium removal, even introduced in Gothic, for example, Be Gone. You brand something as evil, and you yeet it out of existence. So Persecutor could be the best aggro deck in the format. Unfortunately, Interrogator, for example, was looked at in the beginning as, potentially the aggro deck to beat, but I feel like so many players now have built their decks around beating Interrogator that Interrogator's win rates are pretty low if you look at Sorcerer Summit's match history. And so Persecutor, not that it's flying under the radar perhaps, but it does have very interesting lines of attack that are very difficult to be stopped. So in a way, not that you have to, at least this is my opinion, right? Not that you have to race the Persecutor per se, but if the Persecutor is always going to be on your side of the board, right? So when it's attacking on your side of the board, if you choose to race the Persecutor, then you should consider attacking your minions attacking straight into the face of the Persecutor rather than on their sides, because you essentially want your minions close to your own avatar, right? Close to your vest, so that if the time comes where, okay, maybe you're a turn or two away from death's door, okay, maybe I attacked with this minion last turn, but this turn I'm going to keep it as a defender, and look, it's already here next to me, so I don't even have to I don't have to position myself, right? Position the avatar a step forward just to get some sort of protection. So that would be my recommendation against Persecutor. But outside of that, if Persecutor has the ball rolling and is aggressive from turn one with a Forge, right? So they have Forge. I don't think this. I see this list has Open Grave or Open Mausoleum, but anyways, from turn one, they could be very aggressive, especially on turn two, where they can play a minion and take a step. And so one more thing that I would recommend against a Persecutor is, if you are choosing to use minions to defend your avatar, I would suggest not stacking your minions on top of your avatar, because you don't want them to play cards like Flame Strike, right, where it'll remove the blocker and deal 3 damage to you. You want to give the Persecutor, you want to make them have to choose between damage or removal, and so you don't want to kind of stack them together. I don't see this list as running any minor explosions, but that's another card that other Persecutor lists do play. So keep an eye on that. And finally, last deck we're going to look at is Enchantress. So this is by Zalem. Enchantress was the first deck that I ever built when playing Sorcery back in the beta days. Was an Enchantress list. I was really into, at the time, maybe I was ahead of my time. I was playing Water. I was playing Floods, I was playing Giant Shark, Mariner's Curse, etc. And I just really enjoyed that deck, you know, being able to attack with your auras while also having the shark not attack your own minions, because that's kind of a drawback with the shark, right? So what Enchantress got with Gothic is essentially the ability to now go into any kind of color combination and be very lethal. So in water, you have auras like Acid Rain now. In fire, you have Salt the Earth, very good. You have in air, Sphere of Animosity, one of the best auras now in the game. So you're essentially able to play a type of enchantress where you're no longer have to play bad auras just to have auras. You can just play a gas, right? So you have the auras from Gothic. You have the combination of being able to go air and earth that have the basically some of the strongest auras and the strongest card draw in Grandmaster Wizard Morgana Le Fay. And you're just able to kind of play this type of style where you could control the board with the auras, and then you can go into the attack kind of like on a whim. So my recommendations against Enchantress, obviously in your opening hand, if you see a toolbox, you might want to keep that just to have access to your dispels and your disenchants, right, to remove auras. And also, I mean, another thing that kind of everyone recommends is just setting up your sights in an M type of shape, right? So you have your starting sight, one to the front, and then you kind of just build to the sides and then down to your corners in the shape of an M, because it helps out with the, at least, right? If their auras are on top of your avatar, they can't animate them to then attack your avatar. So it does help out with that, but honestly, if Enchantress does draw their Grandmaster Wizard or Morgana Le Fay, it's really difficult to be able to keep Enchantress down because you're not able to interact with the minions when they come down. Well, the auras, right? And yeah, they're just going to attack you in different lines that you can't always defend. And so Enchantress, super solid list, and although may not be one of the most popular lists, it's a bit of a noob stomper as well. It's just if you don't have the experience against Enchantress, you're in for a bad time essentially. So that's basically it. Avatars that weren't mentioned in this video aren't necessarily bad, but are either struggling against the big dogs, or I have not really seen a significant amount of games that would lead me to believe that they could end up in the top 8. My top 8 prediction for SorceryCon 2026, some combination of perhaps 2 Pathfinders, 2 Necromancers, the Impostor, Avatar of Air, 1 Savior, 1 Enchantress. Now, I don't know exactly which players will be there, so I could be completely wrong. If certain players show up, maybe Archimagos at the top of the tables, or even the Boogeyman of Yore, the Druid, which I didn't really get into in this video. The strength of water is undeniable as well. So other avatars not mentioned, such as Battle Mage and Elementalist, with the strong water side base, can have a solid showing as well. But that will wrap up things for this special edition of the Meta Snapshot. My goal is to do Meta Snapshots around mid-month and end of month, unless there's a big event to talk about. Along with meta analysis, you can expect deck techs and codex talk videos as well. This channel was created out of the desire to watch more sorcery content, and maybe you currently find yourself in that same position that I was in. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, I will ask you kindly to like this video and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments if you have any feedback for me, and let me know if there's anything sorcery gameplay related you'd like me to cover. Thank you for your time, and take care.